Good morning. If you are with us on Sunday morning on Facebook Live, and if you're watching a recording of this service at any time or day, greetings. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County. I am Bob Renjilian, minister of this congregation. For some announcements this morning, I will highlight just a couple of things that are coming up. Please read your weekly newsletter for more information and details. I will say that I will be offering a new member orientation in March. That's coming up. March is coming up. This is for those who want to learn more about the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County, or Unitarian Universalism in general. And we'll offer it in a COVID-safe method on Zoom for those who wish to learn, and perhaps those who wish to go on to membership, I hope. You can reach out to me. It's open to anyone, whether you're going to go on for membership or not. Send me an email or a phone or text message, and I'll get you on the list. I also am excited to say that Fellowship on the Green is restarting in March. Weather permitting, March 2nd will be our time back at the picnic table, spaced apart and wearing masks except when we're putting food in our mouths. I'm looking forward to this opportunity of having some real in-person, though nicely distant, ways of meeting and greeting one another. Thank you for joining us in this sacred place during these troubled times. From the safety of your homes, in a community consecrated by your presence and our commitment. We are a welcoming and inclusive congregation. We invite your participation and welcome you, whoever you are, without regard to your race, color, age, sex, gender, orientation, politics, or abilities. We require no creed or particular religious belief, asking only that you bring your goodwill and an open heart. Our mission is to support individual spiritual journeys and to promote social, economic, and environmental justice. Now, to any guests or newcomers who have been watching with us today, thank you for taking a chance and taking the time to find us online and join us for worship. And to our members and friends, please, if you're on Facebook or YouTube signed in, use the chat to communicate with each other, to reconnect as a UUTC family, and to express your appreciation. There will be a time when we get to the prayers for you to include those as well. Our call to worship is Do You Hear? Presented by Janice Cannon and Elaine Shaver. Please relax and let the music lead you into the spirit of worship.
Through the crushed, do you hear in the hush of your
opening words are by Geoffrey Lockwood. Geoffrey is an insect ecologist and writer, and a professor of natural sciences and humanities at the University of Wyoming. As an online columnist for the Unitarian Universalist World magazine, he is also a member of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laramie, Wyoming. This is a story. Once upon a time, a thief snuck into the room of a sleeping Buddhist monk. As the burglar rummaged around, the monk awoke. The startled thief ran into the snowy streets with the monk racing after him. "Please stop," the monk called, and the man finally did, realizing that his pursuer was no threat. "You'll need this," the monk gasped, handing the thief his own coat. "What do you mean?" the man asked. The monk replied, "I saw that you dashed away from my room into the cold without so much as a winter wrap, and I realized that I had both a woolen blanket and a coat." Having this implausible tale of sainthood years ago, I forgot the details, but remember the essential events. Ordinary people can't be morally compelled to make such extraordinary sacrifices, but for whatever reason, perhaps the sheer absurdity of such unconditional altruism, the parable struck with me. It rattled around in my skeptical mind until the day my wife played the role of the Buddhist monk. As my wife and I headed into the mountains for a day of skiing with our children, who were 4 and 6 at the time, in the chaos of packing up that morning, we'd forgotten our daughter's mittens. The wind was whipping and mercury hovered in the teens, so no mittens meant no skiing. But for my wife, the solution was obvious as it was simple. She always wore 2 pairs of socks. So she removed the outer layer and pulled them over Aaron's hands. The problem solved, we headed down the trail. "I found her approach rather clever," he said. "The sort of practical, motherly thinking that often eludes my analytical scientist's mind, but hardly heroic. However, the bitter cold and the woolen warmth evoked the parable of that monk's coat. Among the snow-hushed pines, I remembered how the dialogue ended." "I don't understand," the thief said. "It is simple," the monk replied. "You have nothing at all to keep you warm." "But you are a fool to give away your coat, leaving you with only a blanket," the man replied, reaching for that garment. "If I had 2 gloves on one hand and none on the other, would I be a fool to put one of them on my bare hand?" the monk asked. The man said nothing, took the coat, and hurried down the street. When we are not alienated, when love draws us into and unto the suffering of others, when we see our happiness entwined in their well-being, then generosity is neither foolish nor heroic. It is the simplest and most obvious choice. The words for our chalice lighting are from John Woods. A candle is a careless thing. See how it is always stretching upwards and out. It gives substance without murmur or complaint to the flame it is consuming. It doesn't even seem to care into which corner the flame flings its light, whether the corner is dirty, pretty, or ugly, far and near, high or low, deserving or forgotten, useful or neglected. A Apparently, too, it doesn't care to whom it spread its warmth, whether to the outer chill, a lonely heart, a child's delight, a knave or a lout. A candle that tries to conserve its substance is poor company on a dark night. It's pleasant to look at it in the daylight. It's smoothly appealing, but any candle that does not give itself away is a disappointment in the deepening shadows of a long evening. Some friends are like that, good friends in days of plenty, poor company in hours of dusk and trouble. A candle must give itself away in the giving and in the spreading and the sending. It finds itself. Please join in the first hymn of this morning. The words will be on your screen.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
Now is a time in our service for those whose hearts are full of sorrow, of concern, or of joy. We believe joys are magnified and worry shared. Grief eased by the sharing in loving community. For those of you who are watching us on our online service, I invite you to share your joys, concerns, and your personal passages by using the chat function on whichever way of watching you're using. I will not be able to see these things that you write, but I will include a candle to represent these things shared by folks at home. First, I light a candle of gratitude for the many whose commitment we see and value: the sanitation workers, the nurses and doctors, the teachers, the truck drivers, the postal workers, and more. And for those whose quiet dedication to their unseen jobs makes our life easier. This light is for the tiring work of essential workers. I light this candle. A candle of gratitude for the many whose commitment we see, and a candle now of encouragement during distress. We must work to avoid the polarization that surrounds us, feeds us, and sometimes drains our souls of hope, may we find the courage and strength to hold our convictions, yet still recognize the inherent worth and dignity of others. For we will not build the beloved community unless we are part of the solution. I light a candle of support for those who have fled nature's wrath in this country and throughout the world. May we continue to be there for each other and reach out to connect and help each other. We need each other to survive. I light a candle of support for those who speak up and speak out, bravely standing on the side of justice, imagining a better world for all. We are grateful for them. I light a candle now for those prayers being lifted up in the chat box by those at home. A light is burning here, even as we cannot be with each other. And I light one final candle for all the joys and sorrows that are not yet ready to share. May this flame spark in each of us a connection and a commitment to each other, to listen deeply and leave spaces and an invitation to reveal the things in our hearts. Let us hold these lights and prayers in our hearts as we listen to music, a prayerful piano hymn medley by Carlene Reagan. I invite you now into this time of prayer and meditation. Please ground your feet. Arrange your body in such a way that you are relaxed and attentive. Take a deep breath. Let it out. And may the words of this prayer flow through us. Spirit of love and life, we who are gathered here on this Sunday, each from our own locations, come to this moment with our own fears and our own joys, our incredulity of the ways in which humans can be surprisingly generous with one another, in the ways in which the tensions and drama of the news cycle may draw us away from that understanding of great generosity. Though we may enter our time with tears, may we know that we are upheld in community. May the Spirit of love and life be all among us. May we remember how even the simplest presents that we might give to ourselves or those we know, near or far, can be a generous act and gift. These and the meditations of our hearts and the thoughts of our minds, let us hold now in a brief silence together. In the names of all those known and unknown, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind, we say, Amen. Blessed be. I invite you to listen attentively to our guest reader, bringing us words of interest. If ever you wished to bring a particular reading to be used with our weekly newsletter or perhaps chosen for a worship service in the future, please let us know. We would be glad to hear the wisdom from your lips.
I'm Jim Hardy. I'd like to share a little story about perspective. There once was a boy who belonged to a very wealthy family. One day, the father took the son on a trip to show him how poor people lived. They stopped by a farm of a poor family and stayed with them for a few days. When they left, the father asked his son if he enjoyed himself. "Oh, yes," said the boy. "And did you notice how they lived compared to us?" asked the father. "Well, sure, Dad," said the boy. "And what did you learn?" asked the father. "Well, we only have one dog, but they have 4. We have a pool in the backyard, but they live next to an endless river. We have large street lamps and bright lights that block out the stars. Their whole place is dark at night and they can see the stars. We have a fenced-in yard, but they have acres and acres of fields. We buy food, but they grow it." The father was stunned. The boy thought for a moment more and then added, "Thank you, Dad, for not being afraid to show me how rich we could be."
Good morning, all. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for joining in on this generosity sermon. I will say that right now is a great time to be thinking of generosity. We're a little less distracted this month. We've had more chance to get away from the holidays hubbub earlier in the winter, the absolute trauma of watching politics in the Capitol in January. maybe now, in this month, we can listen. Listen as we did to the poem and poet who shared at Inauguration Day. Listen to the wise words of Bart Renner, who sent us all a letter, those of us who are signing up to pledge. I believe in generosity. I believe in the ways in which we are made more human and whole. But it's interesting. The idea of generosity was based, as the word was, in the same root word that goes into genealogy or generation. It was inherited. It was assumed to be something of kings and nobles. I don't know that anyone would have expected the story that I shared earlier of a monk sharing their only coat as a means of surprising act of kindness and generosity. Here, I have a blanket. You have nothing. Please take my coat. It was originally assumed centuries ago that it was only those who were born into a family who had that noble ability to give away. And yet, it should not have come as a surprise for all that is taught in religions of being generous to your neighbor, the golden rule of treating one another in a way that you would hope to be treated. And in all cases, to be of comfort to those who are afflicted, to give water to those who are thirsty, to offer something of what you have of food to those who are starving. Religion has brought us to the point where it's not just monks, it's not just those who are committed in a religious way of giving their life to a path of religion. It's each of us being able to own that glimpse, that generosity, to become part of that family, to become part of that nobility of heart, empathy, to realize that when we are holding hands with one another, our warmth is spread. In the beginning, I said something about the candle using up itself, spreading its light no matter what kind of corner or opportunity for a reflection to return, consumed as it gives its whole life. Unless it's stored in a closet, its whole life being one of generosity, using up the last bit of self before the end. It's said that some people have as a part of their philosophy of life that they wish to be used up at the end, to race to the end of life, always giving, always granting something to others, so that at the very end you fall to dust with nothing left to give, but remembered perhaps by the way people felt, by the way you mixed and mingled in the world. Your brightness, your zest, your warmth, your compassion in whatever ways you were able to give. Perhaps you have fostered children, adopted children, reached out to neighbors who are of no relationship to you at all. They are not part of your genealogy, and yet making sure to give them rides. Well, once you've had your shots and feel a little more confident, going back to that, or bringing over some warm, hot tea and ringing the doorbell to say, I understand you're not feeling well. Please know that you are important to me, and I hope you feel better. Our generosity, when it occurs, makes the hugest difference to leave no gap for something of evil to creep in. Sure, we can feel that we are taken advantage of when we are generous. Or perhaps we find out that the person who has been given something of our generosity did not quite value, had not quite learned how to pay it forward to others, and only abandons the piece of clothing or whatever we gave at the end of it all. There is a biblical story of those who are given the talents, the money, the master giving to those their money to hold. We can be uncomfortable with the master language. Think again only of those who had a great amount to be able to spread around for others to do something with. A generosity there, go and do something with this. And some did. And they invested it, or they went off and doing things, and yet there was one who was criticized at the end, who did something with the money. For when that generous person came back, that person who received all those talents, those coins, said, you get it all back. I saved it for you. I'm paying it back to you. I buried it in the ground. And the result was, how foolish of you. Why did you not do something with this? There's something of the sense that you could have invested in what you value. You could have made a difference in the lives of others. You left it in the dirt. For while it's here and I get it back, wait a minute. We expected something to be done. I always like it when a congregation thinks of a budget that is too big to accomplish and ends with something close to a deficit at the end of the fiscal year, knowing we didn't bury any of the coins that you gave to us. We used it for the purposes that we said we'd use it for, to spread music, to spread our message that others might feel cared for the social justice we stand for the presence in a community which may not understand how we want everyone at the table, how we embrace diversity, for just showing up and having our sign out front at the main road on Broad Street to declare an alternative to things that may not fit for everyone, of the choices that you perhaps drove past on your way in and out of Brevard. All the congregations, hopefully teaching the same, but when you bring your money to us, may you know we have not buried it. But do know, if you are worse off than the monk even in not having something to share to a cold, needed person, know that the generosity of this congregation has given us money for me to distribute for the minister's discretionary fund. Now, over the years, in various congregations, I have seen all different methods of ways in which people could make use. Your winter fuel bill is too high. Before starts adding up interest, or even worse, you have a utility saying that they're going to shut you off, remember your church is here for you. Before you realize that you do not have the copay for your doctor's visit, reach out. Now, I've had people who've benefited from this generosity say, I need to pay it back. I don't want to feel as if I'm not giving now that I can again. And I always say, find some way to pay it forward. Yes, some people do put money back in the coffers to go out and be used again. But maybe, just maybe, you found another charity out there, or you found some way to live your Unitarian Universalist values the way you've been taught to be in this nobility of generosity. I have a reading from Maya Angelou, a short one-line quote. I have found that among all its other benefits, giving liberates the soul of the giver. I love that. When we come round to members and friends and ask you, will you please increase your pledge? Will you give boldly? Will you be able to sacrifice? We hope that giving liberates you from something that's holding you back, keeping you from exercising the best you that you can be. And you may say, Bob, this is your finest televangelist moment. Maybe so, except that other than a televangelist doesn't really have a congregation, and I am part of one. And because televangelists almost never tell you that they give or where the money ever goes to, we do. Anybody can look at the financial reports to know that we're doing a good job of spending it away, and why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. Christy and I have committed ourselves with a pledge to this congregation. I've not joined yet. In fact, there may be many who are in our visitor category out there who watch and listen but realize that this is a place to be committed to. I am committed. My wife, Christy, is committed. And we have turned in a pledge that turns back 5% of what this congregation pays me for the good of this place. Because I sit with the teams and I meet with the individuals and I see how this congregation is respected in this community by those who are making a difference. And I know that every dollar that is gone from our coffers is used wisely. And I feel liberated in being able to do that. Now we know the biblical story of the widow's mite. What you have to give, of whatever level, need not be that it puts you as the top pledger of this congregation or leaves you in a space where you have nothing to eat. But we are looking for the evidence that generosity is working and liberating you all. So we're looking for 100% participation for all of you who are in our directory. We're welcoming those who have not yet made a financial contribution to think of one. Whatever it is that you give, like the widow's mite, out of generosity and love makes a difference. There's a quote here for a scripture for Lent by Richard Rohr, in which he says, there are two moments that matter. One is when you know that your one and only life is absolutely valuable and alive. The other is when you know your life as presently lived is entirely pointless and empty. You need both. Both of them to keep you going on the right direction. And this season of Lent is about both. The first such moment gives you energy and joy by connecting you with your ultimate source and your ground of being. The second gives you limits and boundaries and a proper humility so that you keep seeking the source and the ground and not just your small self. May you give up something during this season. May you recognize your bounds and your humility. May you reevaluate the ways in which you might instead be going in the right direction. May you feel as the nobles of old and as the monk of our story, of the best of all that has been shared in the wisdom today. May you feel that you are making a difference to something you care about and love. Blessings on all of you. Thank you for being part of this place and your time and your talent and, yes, your treasure. Thank you. I am so glad to be part of this community. Blessings. Amen. I don't really need to hold this up this week, do I? I just gave you a good, long 15, 20 minutes of what I'd say. But for those of you who want that reminder, our weekly reminder of generosity, please look in your online information, go to our website, and find a way to contribute. Thank you. In the spirit of our beloved community, please join with me now in singing our closing hymn. The words will be on your screen.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place,
when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place.
when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place,
when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place.
when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy
As I extinguish this chalice, let us remember the story of the candle, or in this case, the lamp, which gives all of itself to whatever corner and whatever ways or persons might feel its warmth and need its light. And I extinguish our helper candle as a reminder that yes, on and off, we need to be the helpers to others. As you go out into this world, may you feel your generous self. And during this season of Lent, may you also feel your humble self. May what you do help guide and illuminate others, and may you know this community loves and illuminates and values you. Blessings on you as you go out, and blessings again, and joy as you rejoin us with love. Thank you for being with us.